October 7th, 2021. This is the Daily Rob with the Sultan of Radness, the pound for pound intellectual heavyweight, the one, the only, Rob Smith.
Thank you, Stu. My brain feels like doing a little sparring. Give me an opponent. Put somebody in the ring. Bring them to me. I'll put a blindfold on. Let's go.
I'll style my hair up like Don King and I'll become your promoter.
Okay. All right.
It don't matter whether you're young or old. Let the good times roll. So I want this country to let the good times roll.
You'd make a lot of money, Stu, being my promoter.
Sure I would. So what stories are you keeping an eye on this morning?
Stu, I'm like in a big watchtower on top of the globe, looking over everything. As you know everything. So it's just a matter of what I want to talk about. And I think, Stu, I will continue to talk about the totalitarian state and as it relates to COVID, because that's the story every day. And, if you want to go after the big story that affects people the most, that they ought to know and ought to be concerned about, unfortunately, it's the way that the state reacts to COVID. Los Angeles City Council passed an ordinance. You have to have a vaccine mandate to, go to a bar, a gym, a shopping center, a theater, but that pretty much encompasses anything. I think LA itself is, 10.3 million, and the county is much bigger. So just think what that's going to do for business. And again, think about how the CDC and everybody knows that the vaccines don't work, and somebody who's vaccinated can carry the virus just like anybody who's not vaccinated. And these people just don't care. They're bound to know this. And it just shows you that it is a power play. And these businesses are going to be hurt. And not to mention the people who are going to be afraid to go outside, who, can't go anywhere.
Just a word on that real quick.
Yes, Stu.
I saw some public speeches recently, and one of the fellas is from that.
You saw the public speeches or you heard the public speeches?
I was there in the audience, so I saw them and heard them.
Okay.
But the speaker was talking about how where he is in LA is called Coffee Row, because you have so many independent coffee people and, well, not weed smokers, but actual coffee they were selling. Because coffee is so popular, you had all these individual stores that sell their own beans and did certain things with them. And due to all these lockdowns in LA and everything, all of those are out of business. But guess what's still in business?
Marijuana?
Starbucks. So all the small businesses, not major corporations, are now gone, but Starbucks remains and is now that everything is trying to actually function despite all this totalitarianism. That's the one that's, I guess, limping forward and will continue to go on while everyone else has had their business ruined.
See, Stu, that hurts me. I feel the pain because I live in a world where I know lots of people who have, started from nothing and they pursued their dream and they're smart and they get ahead and they're not asking for help from anybody. Those are my kind of people, the people I like, and they're the ones just getting screwed by the people who have never taken any risks like that, who suck off the government teat, as they say. Do you say teat, Stu, or do you say the other T word?
I feel like when we say teat, it almost implies more of a
cow udder. Pardon?
I feel like teat implies like multiple nipples in a row. I'm serious. Because you would say like all those.
Well, wasn't there a Bond girl who had multiple nipples in a row?
Oh, that was I think you're thinking of Scaramanga, who had 3
Okay,
nipples.
all right.
Man with a Golden Gun, played by the irreplaceable Christopher Lee, cousin to Ian Fleming, and a just world-class act.
But Sean Connery's still the best Bond, don't you think, Stu?
I would say I like Connery a lot. I think Timothy Dalton is misunderstood as Bond. He was kind of gritty before that was the kind of zeitgeist of cinema. And I think Daniel Craig has also done a really fantastic.
I like Daniel Craig. Stu, a lot of people have compared me to the American James Bond. What do you think about that assertion, that observation by so many people?
I think there's so much about that we would have to declassify before we could actually get into the fact finding.
Okay, all right.
I don't want to get in trouble with the government,
Okay, all right, I understand. So that's my point. It's just all these businesses, these guys who bust their ass, and the real doers of the world are not the sissified punks who work for the government. They're the people who start a business from nothing. Those are the people who make America great, Stu. Along those lines, more people are dying of the shot. You don't ever hear it reported. I was walking up the street last Sunday. I saw this gal who I knew. She'd gotten a new job. She was working in hospice, and she told me just how many people she's encountered who died immediately right after the shot. And I think that's why a lot of these nurses are not taking the vaccine. It's not saying everybody's going to die. It's not saying that the vaccine shouldn't be taken by some folks. It's just the government's hiding the information from you so people can't make an informed decision. They're trying to cram it down your throat. All right, Stu. There's another story about the Wuhan virology lab and Mr. Fauci's funding of the coronavirus. There's an Englishman named Peter Daszak. A FOIA type request was served on him, and sure enough, there was an application in for a grant where the money would be coming from the NIH and Fauci. And if you read it, it says, man-made virus, unlike anything in nature before, to those effects. And he's been proven to be a liar. And a Rutgers microbiologist was quoted as saying yesterday, the documents make it clear that assertions by DIH Director Francis Collins and the NIAID Director Anthony Fauci, aka Mussolini, that the NIH did not support gain-of-function research or potential pandemic pathogen enhancement at WIV, that's the Wuhan place, are untruthful. In other words, he lied to Congress. Another COVID story is Rashid Tlaib was filmed on camera saying the only time she wears a mask is when she's on camera. Just again, shows you it ain't about the virus, it ain't about health, it's about control. Two other quick stories, Stu. You remember when our president said, we're going to get every American out of Afghanistan? Of course, in the same news conference, he said, we're leaving everybody there. And then he said, we're going to get them all out. It was a total cluster, beep. But there's still 38 Sacramento, California school kids trapped in Afghanistan, and they're not letting them out. And it's not in the news, but people ought to know about that. Finally, Stu, the murder rate is it has had its highest increase in 33 years. Now, why do you think that is? Could it have anything to do with the reaction of Black Lives Matter and Antifa destroying America and burning and looting and and leftist mayors saying, oh, leave them alone. They're just children. It's the cops' fault. And all the cops quitting and having new rules and impositions put on the police. Gee, I don't know. That's it, Stu. That's what I got.
Okay.
I'm still dancing though.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
Good morning. Sunday morning.
She's brilliant, she's ways. She's queen of 50 states. She's elegance and taste. She's Miss United States. Hold your crown, oh pride. Hold your crown, oh pride.
Good morning. Sunday morning.
Stop it, please, I beg you! It's a sin! It's a sin!
And now back to your regularly scheduled program.
There you go. So, I hate talking about it, but both of my stories today are COVID related. And so in Sweden, Sweden and Denmark have paused the Moderna COVID jabs for younger age groups. And do you want to guess what birth year is the cutoff for this?
Birth year, I would say 2005.
1991. So this
Wow.
exactly
30 years and younger.
the Swedish Health Agency, and so this is from Al Jazeera, which is a great place to get the news. But the Swedish Health Agency said on Wednesday it would pause using the shot for people born in 1991 and after, as data pointed to an increase of myocarditis and pericarditis among youths and young adults that had been vaccinated. And so just very interesting to see. Now, there is an aspect of this that makes me think that maybe it's because the money behind the vaccine is focused on Pfizer. So if we actually look at some of the stats concerning this, when it comes to stocks owned by Congress, the Pfizer stock is the 5th most owned stock. Johnson & Johnson is the 8th most owned stock.
You are
And
kidding me.
Not so, and that's actually just only using the 2019 data. So a lot of this data is really difficult to find, and I'm going to have all the imagery up for this, as you'll be seeing if you're a watcher right now. So
I mean, if you think of, the S&P itself is 500 different securities, and anybody who trades stuff online knows there are thousands of picks out there. But for the top ones to be pharmaceutical like that, directly on legislation they're imposing on other people. That's what I gotta say, Stu.
now, do you want to guess what percent of Congress cashed a pharma campaign check in 2020?
94%.
2/3. So,
Yeah.
but it gets much worse than that.
Who are the 2/3? Which party?
All over the place.
Yeah.
It's across the board. Now, something that is really interesting is, give me a quick second to pull this up. I have so many things, but I wanted to give you the exact stats concerning Pfizer and what they're doing in Congress. Pfizer, which played arguably the biggest role, and so this is from statnews.com. Pfizer, which played arguably the biggest role in 2020's vaccine race, also had a frenzied year politically. In addition to giving roughly $1 million to members of Congress, Pfizer also wrote checks to 1,048 individual candidates in state legislative races. So, I mean, it's definitely pretty wild. Now, something that I've been noticing in the news has been concerning this new antiviral COVID pill called molnupiravir, and
Rolls right off the tongue, doesn't it?
yeah. And so this is from Merck. Now, Merck is the 25th most owned stock in Congress, and it is right sandwiched between Visa at 24 and Comcast at 26. So it's up there. Now, the interesting thing that I'm seeing from sciencenews.org and all these other publications discussing this new super amazing Merck drug is that you could actually go to the Wikipedia for this new medication, molnupiravir, and you can actually see the history of development, how there were whistleblower complaints concerning this, and how there were people on the project that were not happy with it. And one of the things that they were concerned about was that you would actually have birth defects in the animal studies that was going on with this. But it still got headlined. And another aspect concerning this, and this is an academic journal. So this is from the Journal of Infectious Diseases, volume 224, issue 3, August 1st, 2021. And near the end of the article discussing this, it says this: evaluating the utility of this drug should be done in those likely to receive the greatest benefit, with monitoring provided to assess potential long-term genotoxic side effects. Now, the issue with this is because of the way this drug works, it will, and I've talked about this before on the podcast when we talk about how these RNA viruses evolve really quickly. What this drug does is that it actually triggers the reaction that causes the evolutionary process of the RNA virus to spiral into that error catastrophe mode, where it mutates so quickly it falls apart. But because it triggers that mutation, it will actually make DNA mutations in mammalian cells as well. And that's essentially what it's talking about in this study.
It can harm your genetic composition.
Yes. And so I, for one, had never even run into this word genotoxic before, but I mean, it makes sense. I know exactly what it means, but you would imagine all these scientific publications saying how amazing this would have the scientific literacy to be able to pull this stuff up just like me. I mean, this didn't take me hours and hours to find, but just by digging in a little bit, I'm able to find all this just kind of nasty stuff about this. When we know there are antivirals out there that have decades of long-term effects, publications and studies and all that good stuff that we can turn to.
Well, when you're messing with the genetic composition of somebody, it's kind of like you've got a car and the new oil you put in, it helps the car run, the engine runs smoother, but it fouls up the spark plugs and the gasket and messes with the electrical wiring a lot. Our genetic composition controls a lot of elements of our health because certain things that are within that genome kick in to make us healthy and to fight disease. Yeah, it's crazy. It's just another example of using a scare tactic to, one, control, and two, to make money.
And speaking of making money, so this,
which I'm all for if it's done honestly and you don't hurt people.
yeah, but this is from The Intercept. Merck sells federally financed COVID pill to US for 40 times what it costs to make. So there's that as well. But,
And again, who's getting approval for what? I mean, in a wide open market, where anybody can sell whatever they want, that price comes down to a penny a pill. But since they have to have the premature of the government on it, I wonder how you get that.
Yeah, it's a dirty game, but I followed your advice of follow the money, and this is all the stuff I pulled up. So
Well, way to go, Stu. You're on it, my man.
yeah, I
You
guess.
slap those mother beeps around. Now, here you are, Stu. You've got a viewership of several million people on this podcast. Certainly the higher ups in government are going to see this podcast and they're going to say, damn, Stu just slam dunked the ball on my head. But they're not going to do anything. They're going to continue. They know this is wrong, but they're going to continue down the road of trying to push these experimental drugs on people.
Do you have any words of wisdom for today?
Well, Stu, I was thinking I might give you a quote. Now, would you prefer to have a Teddy Roosevelt quote or an Edmund Ruffin quote?
I have no clue who Edmund Ruffin is, so I'll pick that.
Ooh, well, Stu, Edmund Ruffin was a fire eater. He was a strident successionist. He was one, and matter of fact, he's a Virginian, and he was the one who fired the first shot on Fort Sumter.
Okay.
Oh, and by the way, do you know who manufactured the cannon that fired on Fort Sumter?
I want to say most of the cannons used during the Civil War were Chesterfields.
Well, this was made by your great grandfather, H.M. Smith.
Okay.
And it was really the firing mechanism.
Okay.
So, Stu, that's your connection to a very historical event and a worthy one as well. Well, towards the end of the war, by the way, he was a great agriculturalist and great scientist. But towards the end of the war, when the heathen Yankees were in Petersburg and all around, he had a plantation in Charles City called Redmore, and they wanted him. So he took the Confederate flag, and I don't know whether it was the Confederate flag or the battle flag, but he wrapped himself in the flag, and then he wrote out, "I hereby declare my unmitigated hatred to the vile, perfidious, and malignant Yankee race." And then he took his pistol and he blew his brains out.
Jesus Christ.
That's the way to go out, Stu.
Okay. So is that your quote for the day?
That's my quote for the day.
Okay.
But Stu, it is within the genre here of not liking centralized government and being told what the hell to do.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But brighter days will probably be ahead once we get these people out
I
of
don't think we have to shoot ourselves.
Well, I'm not planning on that anytime
Me neither,
soon.
Stu. I'm fighting to the death. Got my bayonet, my knife between my teeth, going into the jungle.
There you go.
All right,
Right
Stu,
on.
go get them.
I'll catch you later.
Listen up, just a good old boy, never meaning no harm. Beats all you ever saw, been in trouble with the law since the day they was born.